Here at Granny's Legacy Patterns, we are working on our folk stitch piece called Fraktur. It's the name of our piece. We've named it Waltz. It's a German folk stitch, and it's really inspired by the Fraktur paintings. And we decided we wanted kind of a framed edge on this one. So we've created what I call a knotted blanket stitch. So I have two pieces of thread here, two different colors. I've chosen to use the O154 that's kind of a caramely color and the V106 gold yellow color. And I've threaded a chenille needle, really with two strands like this. The chenille needle I felt was my best tool. So I've threaded it with two strands, and I'm using a little bit longer than I normally would. Usually I say 18 inches, but I almost have probably 36 here. I'm going to put a tiny bit of thread wax on there just to keep those strands together. When working with two strands of thread, a little bit of thread wax kind of melts them together and keeps them working together as a pair rather than fighting against each other. So this is really just an enhanced blanket stitch. So it's the same thing as a blanket stitch for starting. So on the back of your work, come through between the two layers. And then I'm going to come up in the middle of the last knot that I created. So I'm going to make my needle come right up there in the center of that knot so it doesn't look like I have started a new thread. Now I'm just going to do a blanket stitch, and I've chosen to do my stitches quite close together in a very shallow blanket stitch because I really want the knot to be doing the talking here, not necessarily the blanket stitch. So I pull it up, and then I sneak right underneath that stitch, and I try to catch the edge of my black mat, and I create a knot on there. So I'm calling this a knotted blanket stitch. So simple. So once again, go just a small blanket stitch, and I'm going quite close together because I really want the knot to be what shows off here. And just sneak underneath of that blanket stitch and create a knot. And don't pull it up too tight. You want the knot to be as large, well, I like the knot to be rather large, so I'm going to not try to yank it down too tight. I'm going to let it just create a nice little knot there. So a shallow blanket stitch, not too far apart, and then I go right underneath of there, and I almost try to nibble into the edge so that it holds my knot right where I want it to be. And I think it creates kind of a lovely frame around the edge of this piece. Oftentimes the German Fraktur paintings would have some kind of a frame painted around the edge of their painting. So this to me created that look. Now, if you don't care for the look of the yellow and the gold, the caramel together, you could use blue and black or all black, or maybe red and black would have been a lovely edging too. You could do a couple samples just to see what color you'd like to frame your piece with. But it really worked best for me to use two strands of thread. And then, so I will stop now so you can take a close look at this. And if you get a knot that didn't want to behave a little bit, you can take your needle in there and yank it a little bit and try to get it to look like the surrounding ones. But after you're finished with all your knots, you would want to turn it face down on a wool mat or a heavy towel and block it from the back, and then it will lay very nicely flat and create a really lovely frame around the edge of your piece. So thank you for joining us today at Granny's Legacy Patterns.